So that is one of the questions I have for you as a coach is how do people go into this healing process and not feel overwhelmed by it? Because I think that's part of the if we can take in so much information, but knowing how to break it down into
Hmm.
little pieces so we don't beat ourselves up.
Yeah,
How do you help people with that?
that's such a great question. I use a principle that I came up with called scale but never miss. So whatever you need to scale it back to, you first need to decide what it is that you need to do, right? What is the thing, what is the work that you need to put in and do on a regular basis that's going to get you the result? Okay. And this, comes through practice. I love that word. When you practice stuff, you get to see the result, right? You also learn from other people and mentors. That's why I'm constantly reading and listening to other people. So you learn the things that you learn what they learned, without having to learn it yourself, right? It's one of the
Yeah,
best hacks there is, right? You know
totally.
this. That's why podcasts are so great.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so you take something, let's say your capacity is really low, right? You're in a very bad place and your capacity is low. So you would take whatever you're doing and you would scale it down to a place where you can do it. Like they say, well, can you meditate for 1 minute? Right? Can
Yeah.
you can you just show up at the gym? You don't even have to go in, right? Can you like there's all these things that you can do and you can scale it down until it's not overwhelming. And then when you start to build your capacity, then you can start to ramp up whatever it is you're doing to get the desired result. Because I think it's James Clear that wrote Atomic Habits.
Oh, I love that book.
Awesome book.
Oh,
And that's what he
so
talks
good.
about. You have to first actually develop the habit before you can increase the habit, right? So it's the small, just showing up day in and day out. That's why I do the cold, because people I love the cold and what it does for your physiology. It's amazing. But
Yes.
what it does for your psychology is, in my opinion, way more powerful, because every morning you show up and your brain is constantly trying to get out of this work because it's miserable, right? It's quick. It only takes me 15 seconds to go out there, get in, dunk my head, calm my breathing, dunk my head, get out. Not a problem, right?
Yep.
And I've committed to doing it year round, every single day that I'm home. If I'm not at home, I do cold showers. Like if I'm at the fire department, I do cold showers, right? But it's the
Mhm.
fact that you're butting up against something that you don't want to do, and it's so easy to do. So you're sitting there, there's nobody there to tell you to do it, to get you all ramped up and excited to do it. You're sitting there and you're having this conversation with yourself. And you're thinking to yourself, why is this so difficult? And you just realize that just human nature is to resist anything that's uncomfortable. So when you
Yep.
get to that point, you understand that, then you just go, okay, like today, I did a post today with you have to be careful about your feelings. Feelings are important, but in the scope of getting things done, you have to rely on your commitments. Hey, I committed to do this every single day. So that's what I'm going to go. And then you just don't stop thinking, you turn your mind off and you just go, right?
Yeah.
You act your way in before you think your way out. That's one of my favorite things to say, because
Oh,
if you
that's a good
don't,
one.
yeah, if you don't, especially the smarter you get, the easier it is to justify to yourself why not to do it. And you'll come up with the best justifications, the best justifications. So
Yeah. Yeah.
scale, but never miss. That's what I would tell your listeners.
I love that. That's a good one. And like I say, that comes from personal experience, that feeling of overwhelm. And it resonates with how I've done it. I had a really difficult relationship with sleep because sleep made me feel lazy, right? And yet when I look back on my life from my earliest days I remember, I loved to sleep. And I realized it was because it's what my body was craving because I ran at such a high sympathetic load. And when I started to learn about sleep, and I was like, and I realized that it was actually nourishing me. I could flip that mindset. But it's the little tiny things that we learn that you can start with, and then once I was sleeping better, you could start doing more other things,
Yeah.
that seemed harder at the time. But it's like that; those building blocks are huge. And there's another thing that you posted about that I want to hear you speak to is motivation and how we don't always feel motivated to do things, and that your concept on how to do that next thing when the motivation isn't there. Can you talk to me a little bit about your view on motivation and where it comes from?
Yeah. So motivation is your motive in action, right? So it's so funny because people are like, oh, I don't want to go, I don't feel like running, going outside running. I'm like, well, yeah, because you're not running. Like, that is the paradox of life. It's like you get the feeling after you do the thing. You get the confidence after you do the thing. So you have to rely on your commitments when you do this. And so if you understand that every morning when you wake up, your energy level is low, you are at a low vibrational frequency. And when you look at your problems, let's say your problems are up here, they're on a different level. And when you're down here and you're looking at them, you feel depression and anxiety because you're looking at this and just like, oh, it seems so overwhelming. But it's because you're at a low energy. And every time, if your listeners just have the self awareness that every time they're feeling a certain way, just become self aware of what they're doing. Oh, I'm laying on the couch in the dark, right? I haven't moved all day. Maybe I've overeaten or
Yeah.
eaten stuff I shouldn't eat. I am not hydrated. I haven't moved at all, right? I'm focused on all these other things. Like, I'm focused on all my problems and I'm not doing anything about it. That is suffering, psychological suffering. So, what I tell people is before you do any of that, just get up and get moving. Like, and it can be a lot of different things. There's a lot of different tools. One of my favorites is breath work because you literally don't even have to go anywhere. You could just start doing breath work. I recommend Wim Hof because Wim Hof teaches a very stimulating breath work, right? Oxygenating. But just to simplify it, just go up, just get up, put your shoes on, and go for a walk. Start to deep breathe. And then all of a sudden, your energy level just starts to rise. And then pretty soon you're like, oh, that's not so bad. And you keep going. If you push yourself physically,
Yeah.
everybody knows this. When you go to the gym or when you go running or dancing or whatever, people move their body and they push themselves beyond that place of comfort, man, they feel good. It's like mentally you're on fire. Okay. But it doesn't last. You know, when you go to bed, you wake up next morning and you're back down here again and you got to start it all over. So motivation is like the feeling while you're doing something. And it starts to happen when you start to move towards what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So that comes back to what I like to teach, and that's purpose.